Hey JR,
What's that?
did you know that the Auntie Season podcast is the most watched podcast on YouTube now?
Is it really?
No, you fucking idiot. Hello, everybody. Welcome to episode 3 of the Auntie Season podcast. This is episode 3 2.0. We spent an hour and a half recording, I believe, last night, and we lost all of our audio.
Yeah, Friday night.
So we are
Friday
we
night.
are redoing episode 3 now. It's episode 3 2.0, like I said.
It was Friday night when we first recorded it. Yeah.
And maybe it's a good thing that we're having to re-record because some small stuff has happened around the NFL since our last recording session.
Very true.
So we're going to be talking all NFL today. A lot of free agency, some new contracts, some extensions the guys have signed, and one guy refusing to sign the franchise tag. It's all coming up right here on the Auntie Season podcast. And now, a word from our sponsor. Oh, shit, I forgot. We don't have a sponsor. All right, let's just jump right into it.
I was like, wait a minute, we got a sponsor? I didn't get
Not
that
yet.
memo.
Just wait until episode 17 and we'll have it.
I didn't get that memo yet, kid.
Yeah. So, JR, first thing let's talk about is Dak Prescott signing an extension with the Dallas Cowboys. It's a 4-year extension worth about $160 million. It's crazy front-loaded. He gets like $75 million the first season of his
he does.
extension. They also franchise tagged him. So he's going to play this year on the tag, and then the extension kicks in. So it's basically a 5-year extension if you think about it. But what do you think? Good move, bad move? What are your expectations on or for Dak and the Cowboys moving forward over these next few years?
It's a good move. I believe I said this when we first time recorded it.
Yeah, we're gonna be repeating ourselves a lot. The people won't know it, but we will.
Yeah, we will. But yeah, good move. Definitely could see him. I said, what did I say on Friday? Competing for. I mean, the way he started off this
MVP.
past season, yeah, he definitely was in the conversation first month.
Yeah, the dude was averaging over 400 passing yards per game
Yeah,
to
he was
start
on-
last season.
he was on a roll.
before he had that terrible injury.
They just weren't winning many games. But if he could balance that out and win some more games, along with those ridiculous stats he was putting up, even though he kind of had to because they were still behind and losing and whatnot. So maybe you bump the passing yards down a little bit. But still, he was balling out. If he did that for a full season, he could definitely be in the MVP conversation. So I could see him. I mean, it's a good deal. They had to do it. It was only about time they did it. It took him a while. It only took him breaking his ankle on national television. Shout out to
Shattering
Shattered.
everything in the leg. It was terrible. My God.
Shout out Tony Romo for thinking it was a cramp. what a guy.
Oh, man, can you imagine?
But yeah, that was
Just walk it off. It's just a cramp. It's fine.
that's literally what he said.
That's how they played back in the 50s.
Literally Tony Romo's exact words. Oh, I just hope it's a cramp as they're showing the live
Yeah,
replay
his
of it.
bone is sticking out of his leg, but just walk it off. It's fine.
But yeah, good deal. Had to do it. Had to get it done. I'm all for it.
I agree. There's no better option for the Cowboys right now. I mean, at worst, Prescott's a top 10 quarterback. I mean, when last season he was playing like he was top 5 to start the year. So this is a good deal, I think. Cowboys just got to build that defense up. That's the biggest thing. Their secondary is just terrible.
For sure.
Build that up through free agency and the draft. You have all the weapons you need on offense. So
I don't need any more.
as I say, you're set on offense. Focus on the defense, and they'll compete, especially in the weak ass NFC East. I mean, there's no reason they shouldn't
Best quarterback
win
in the
it.
division.
Now,
Yeah.
now Washington's built up a pretty solid squad.
They have.
I can imagine it being
They could
two of
get
them.
if they could get a quarterback, they'd be solid. Yeah.
Yeah, I think New York's about a year or two away, and then Philadelphia is just terrible. They got a lot of work to do down there, but
Too much work.
there's no reason Dallas shouldn't win that division, depending on what Washington does at quarterback. All right, next quarterback to sign a new deal, Cam Newton, re-signing on a 1-year deal with the Patriots. It's a deal that's worth up to $14 million. Now, he's not going to see all that, and I do want to talk about for a second the fact that I can't stand when initial reports on contracts, people overreact like crazy. Like he signed, everyone said, Cam Newton signs 1-year deal worth $14 million, and everyone's like, oh my God, $14 million, he's not worth that. He was hurt all year. He was terrible. Blah, 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 blah. First and foremost, if you can get a quarterback in the NFL nowadays for $14 million in one season, that's a fucking steal.
Yeah.
Compared to you're paying Patrick Mahomes $50 million. That's nothing. Especially the fact that the Patriots have all that cap space. Second of all, $6 million or $7 million of that is incentives. Pro Bowl, playoffs, Super Bowl, Super Bowl MVP, all pro. Yeah. He's got to meet all these requirements to see the full value of the deal, which is not going to happen.
Yeah, no.
So quit overreacting when you see a deal on Twitter announced by Schefter or Rappaport, and go look at the details of it on Spotrick afterwards. Spotrick is free, or Spotrick. I don't know how you pronounce it. Either way, it's free. Just go to the website and look at it. It's not hard to do, man. Come on. So I'd like to go first on this one because everybody who knows me knows I'm the biggest Cam Newton fan there is. I think it's a good move by New England.
For sure.
First of all, they're not in a position to really upgrade at quarterback this season. They went, 7-9 last year. They don't really have the assets to trade up in the draft for one of the top 4 guys. They're definitely not going to take Mac Jones, I don't think. Although I could see Belichick wanting Mac Jones. But either way. And they're not in a position to trade for somebody. So I think re-signing Cam was their best move. Unless they did just want to go full tank and roll with, Jarrett Stidham for a year, win 2 or 3 games.
Yeah, I don't know about that.
But obviously that's not what they want because the Patriots are not the kind of team who are going to tank.
Yeah, exactly.
That's just not who they are.
Not at all.
The biggest thing now is getting those weapons around Cam that he needs. I mean, last year, once again, he had nobody on offense protecting him. He had plumbers at wide receiver. And
quarterbacks at receiver, yep.
Yeah, and the defense was not obviously up to snuff because a lot of those opt-outs. But they'll be back this year. So New England needs to give Cam some weapons, maybe sign Hunter Henry in free agency. And we'll talk more on some of these big-name free agents here in a little while. But I think it's a good move, and if they put the right pieces around him, I could see them winning 10 games next year, being right back in the playoff hunt, especially with there being 7 teams in the playoffs now per conference.
Yeah.
So what do you think, JR? Good move or bad move?
No, I think it's a solid move. I mean, it's their best option at quarterback, especially because they're not going to tank, like you said. They're not a tanking type of franchise necessarily. Bill Belichick sure isn't. So he's gonna try to, hopefully, they should be trying to acquire as many talented guys on offense as possible to surround him with some weapons. Obviously, you need receivers, possibly Hunter Henry or Jonnu Smith at tight ends. Obviously, revamp the running back room a little bit. They'll hopefully they have money in free agency to splurge a little bit too compared to previous years,
right?
Where they were a little bit more cap strapped. But draft wise, I mean, they've been a little iffy on the drafts in recent years, so I wouldn't. If they hit anything they hit in draft, I should say would be extra on top of them getting some playmakers in free agency. So yeah, it's definitely a good deal. Like you said, it's heavily incentive based. So, I mean, he's not going to see the full $14 million, so you don't got to worry about even if he did, if he sees all $14 million, I mean, he's doing something. He's balling out. I mean, he's having a hell of a season. He might mess around win MVP if he sees all $14 million. But
we
don't necessarily expect that. But
he'll end up winning MVP.
Exactly. Yeah. But yeah,
right.
Good move for sure.
Yeah. Glad we agree. I'd hate to have to come through this camera and choke you. Another guy signing a new deal just announced a few minutes ago before we started recording. Aaron Jones returning to Green Bay, their running back who has been a standout the last 2 seasons, signs a 4-year, $48 million deal with Green Bay.
Yep.
JR, good move or bad move?
It just happened within the last 20 minutes or so. So I want to say
this is as fresh as we're going to get on this topic.
Yeah, it is. I want to say it's a bad move. In a sense, only because they drafted AJ Dillon in the second round last year, and this only happened 20 minutes ago or so, so we had too much time to dwell on it. But I would say it's a bad move because they paid him all this money, and now he's a baller, he's a beast, but I feel like they might have jumped the gun there just because they knew this time tomorrow, legal tampering period starts. And somebody was probably going to hit him over the head with a deal he couldn't refuse. And he's probably going to leave Green Bay. But going back to A.J. Dillon, they literally just used a second-round pick on A.J. Dillon last year. So not only is their first-round pick, Jordan Love, not playing, Their second round pick, A.J. Dillon, he's playing, but he's not the star.
He's going to barely be playing. He'll see
barely be
2 or
playing.
3
So
snaps a game.
so not only did they waste their first round pick, now they essentially kind of in a way almost wasting. They're semi wasting their second round pick at the same time. So I don't know why they did that, and they're already cap strapped to begin with. So yeah, I mean I understand why you want to keep Aaron Jones, yeah, but you wouldn't have if you want to do that. You should have did that. Paid him last season or before the season started. You could probably could have got him for a little cheaper.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't understand the logic behind it.
I agree with you. I think it's a bad deal because of the circumstances. If they had given him the deal a year ago, or if they had given him this deal, and the cap wasn't dropping by so much, I would say okay, decent deal. It's like you said, they did. They're pretty much wasting that draft pick in A.J. Dillon now. And they also have Jamal Williams.
I think he's I don't know if he's
not a scrub.
I
think so, but they could have re-signed him for super cheap. But
yeah, exactly.
The combination of Williams and Dillon at backfield would have given you
suffice enough.
A little bit less production, but still
enough
as much as you need for a quarter of the price. So I don't know if I agree with this deal. It's like we've seen in recent years. You shouldn't give your running backs big deals with big extensions. I mean, Ezekiel Elliott's the biggest example. Todd Gurley's another big one. Christian McCaffrey. I don't want to lump McCaffrey.
No, I wouldn't put McCaffrey in there yet. No, I mean, he missed most of that season, but that's one season. Le'Veon
and
Bell.
It was more so of, and you said this when we recorded this the first time, but it was more so about Matt Rule, the head coach, kind of sitting him.
Preserving him.
Exactly, preserving him. But the point is that it was the amalgamation of all those touches that McCaffrey had that finally led to those injuries. Time.
For sure.
So, running back is the most replaceable position in football. It's not like you're going to get the most production out of that area for the least amount of money. Wide receiver, corner, quarterback, every other position on that team, aside from kickers and punters, you're going to have to pay a decent amount of money to get good production out of. Running back is the only position that you can get good production out of consistently and not have to put a lot of money in that area. Especially with the direction the NFL's gone as far as, and we say this every year, but being a pass-happy league, and every year we see it more, as far as, I mean, Patrick Mahomes in his first season starting ever threw over 5,000 yards and 50 touchdowns. If that doesn't say this is a pass-happy league, I don't know what is.
Yeah.
So I agree with you. I don't think it's a great move for Green Bay. It's a great deal for Aaron Jones, obviously.
Oh he gets to stay. He wanted to stay there too. That's what his
he did.
Said.
And I would want to stay
for sure
playing with Aaron Rodgers too.
For sure,
I get it. All right, JR. The franchise tag window has passed. 9 teams used the franchise tag this year. We already mentioned one, Dak Prescott. 8 other teams used the franchise tag this season. We're going to go through. I don't want to say rapid fire.
Before we start there,
okay,
we might have to throw this topic in here.
Okay,
it just happened just now.
I can't read that. Can't read that.
Go to Shefty's.
For the folks at home.
Shefty's
Twitter.
Home.
Aha! Drew Brees.
He just called it.
Has announced his retirement.
Yes, he did.
How about that? Well, let's talk about that. That just breaking news on the
jump right in it
on the Anti-Season podcast. It's our first time ever breaking news on this podcast, guys. Drew Brees has announced his retirement after what feels like 600 years in football.
Insert SpongeBob meme. 600 years later.
Yeah, honestly, what a career it's been for Drew Brees. One could say underwhelming, I feel like, with just the one Super Bowl. But Drew Brees, definitely a first ballot Hall of Famer in my mind.
Oh, for sure.
Before I talk about him, JR, I'd like to get your thoughts on Drew Brees' career, what he did for the city of New Orleans, especially, everything that happened with Hurricane Katrina. I feel like Drew Brees was kind of a perfect match for that team to help rebuild that city and just give the whole place hope, and energy after such a terrible event. That city relied heavily on the Saints, I think, to help them grow again. So what do you think, JR?
Yeah, he definitely, they said it 15 years to the date to when he signed. So this day, 15 years ago is when he signed there and, took over and revitalized the whole city, whatnot, so he's definitely like I don't want to say God there, but
A legend.
He was a legend for sure, a legend there, obviously in his own right. First ballot Hall of Famer. Good for him, calling it quits, knowing when to go out instead of being forced out like some players are.
Yep, I agree.
It's always a good thing. Hell of a career, obviously. Always, but I can see where you can see underwhelming is a little bit as well. Obviously, there's lots of positives. All time NFL passing leader in passing yards for sure.
Yep.
But as of recently, recent years, his arm has been the same and whatnot. Deep ball has been gone for a few years now. But yeah, one Super Bowl is definitely a little underwhelming for the NFL's all-time leading passer and a guy who's, league-wide or hell all-time wise probably considered top 6, 7, maybe 5, depending on who you ask.
Yeah, depending on who you ask, someone could say top 5. I think if he had won one more Super Bowl, I think he'd be universally considered
top
to be
5 all-time. Yeah, possibly so. Yeah, or an MVP. He doesn't even have an MVP. Yeah.
Yeah, that's
That's
well, I won't say
that's not that crazy, no, because like he put up a bunch of gaudy numbers when they had a few seasons. Like I think his best chance was 2011, I think it was. But Peyton Manning was also like 13-0 at that time, won league MVP, and then 14-0, and then they sat out the last 2 games. I think that was 2011. That was like Drew Brees' best chance to win it that year. He didn't, but.
Yeah.
I mean, hey.
There was a stretch there with the Saints where they just had no defense, and Breeze was putting up ungodly numbers, but they were going 7-9 every year. They were just that kind of that middle attack, and then, they really turned it around, and they were just a consistent winner year after year.
Hit on a few picks.
Obviously, they'd get to the playoffs, and they couldn't finish the job. 2017 was the closest they got being, and it's. I hate to say it as a Panthers fan, but getting robbed against the Rams, as far as that penalty not being called against them for pass interference, and end up, I don't want to say losing because of it, because they made some really stupid mistakes down the stretch after that.
And then they lost in overtime after that. So, I mean, they had many chances to right it, but.
They did. But that was just a terrible non-call, and I think.
For sure.
I think it did, in a way, rob their chances of getting the Super Bowl that year. Of course, I think the Patriots would have beaten them regardless, but it would have been nice to see a Breeze versus Brady Super Bowl. That was definitely at the end of when Breeze was playing as a top quarterback too, because after that, these last 2 years,
been awful.
Yeah, these last 2 years, Breeze had fallen off a cliff. You could tell. One could even say that he's retiring a year or two too late.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. I mean, he was retired last year. Then they convinced him to come back at the Pro Bowl, if you remember correctly, because he was going to announce.
That is right. That is right.
At the Pro Bowl, he was going to announce his retirement, and then they had convinced him to play one more year. So he, because at the Pro Bowl, they had literally had this whole thing set up to where they were going to let Drew Brees be the starter of the NFC team or whatever team he was drafted to. However, the Pro Bowl was set up last year. I don't remember. They change it every few seasons now. I don't remember if they were doing the Team Dion and Team what's name still or whatnot last year.
I'm not sure.
But he was originally retired this time last year at the Pro Bowl, and then they convinced him to come back, and he played this last year. A little underwhelming, fell short again. I mean, so I could see where you say, one Super Bowl ring for sure is underwhelming, considering they only have him and Sean Payton, a hell of a duo, but they've only had one career road playoff win. That's
crazy to think about.
Speaks volumes.
Considering,
and they've had a handful of shortcomings.
Yeah. So, but I don't think. I think when you look at his career, just the entirety of it, we're always just going to talk about the great things he did. We're not going to talk a lot about
for sure
shortcomings of the Saints and him, but we're going to talk about the great things he did because he is a pretty good guy. As far as we know, but But just what a fantastic player. I'm just glad that he won't be around to terrorize my Panthers anymore.
I bet.
On the other side of this, JR, the question now is, what do the Saints do at quarterback? You gotta think they bring back Jameis Winston on maybe a kind of a cheap deal.
You gotta think
considering their cap space situation and that they're really not in a position to go get another quarterback.
Yeah.
Whether it's through the draft or free agency trading. So, what are the chances you think of them rolling with Taysom Hill at quarterback?
if they're going to be back to the Aints if they roll with Taysom Hill, but I'll tell you that.
I would.
It's not going to be looking pretty. Michael Thomas will be requesting a trade shortly after this season ends.
Sean Payton, I would highly suggest that you roll with Taysom Hill as quarterback.
It's not going to look too pretty if Taysom Hill's playing quarterback.
Just give Carolina 2 free wins a year, please.
For
I'm
16
begging.
games.
You've been terrorizing us for years, man. Just help a brother out. Come on.
They better. I don't know who they're going to go. I guess they bring Jameis back on a short deal or prove a deal, 1 or 2 year deal type thing. If they can maneuver that somehow around the cap, they're inching their way closer to the cap. I think they're a little under 20 million. I think over the cap still.
Mm-hmm. The last time I checked, they were still over by about 23 million. But they can extend both Marshawn Lattimore and Ryan Ramczyk, and it will give them some cap space. So I'm sure they'll end up doing that.
Mm-hmm. They got to do that. I mean, Jameis is their best bet. There's not too many quarterbacks in free agents who are young, who are going to cost just as little, and you can see Jameis. Yeah, he's turnover prone heavily. Mm-hmm. Lots of turnovers coming with his game, but I mean, he throws a lot of touchdowns, a lot of yards as well too. So if he could balance that out in a Saints system where he knows it's a lot more, Sean Payton's system, I should say. I mean, he has some talent. He's shown flashes of it plenty of time. He can play in this league. I don't know about full-time starter, 16 games, when you some playoff games and whatnot. That's a whole other story. Probably not, but I mean, in the Saints system, to see if he learned anything behind Drew Brees, I think you got to give Jameis a shot, unless somehow they pull off a trade for Russell Wilson, but I don't even think that's possible.
If I have to go from watching Carolina lose twice a year to Drew Brees to watching them lose twice a year to Russell Wilson, you know what I gotta say. I said it the first 2 episodes. I will go to Charlotte and jump off the tallest building and broadcast it live. Running joke, still able to use it. Boom, it works. All right, man. Let's move on.
Yes.
Like I said, we were talking about franchise tag candidates. 9 players were tagged this offseason, Dak Prescott being one of them. Let's go through each one and say whether it's a good deal or a bad deal
Run them down,
for the team and the player. And not necessarily rapid fire, but let's try to do it kind of quick. I want to see how quick we can get through this. Mm-hmm. So, all right. First up, New Orleans Saints, Marcus Williams, their safety. Good or bad?
I guess it's good. I think I said this on Friday. I think I see both sides of it. I mean, they're in cap hell, so I could see why it would be a bad deal. But I mean, I guess because it's also, I think did I say good or bad? I forget what I said exactly. I think it's a good deal. He's a good player. Better than him hitting the free agent market and getting out, and they get outbid and they lose him.
Right.
Another bad would be there's also a pretty deep free agent safety market.
Yeah, and the draft has some safeties that are not like overwhelming by any means.
Yeah, for sure.
Honestly, it's kind of an underwhelming draft class. Now there are some guys at the top that I feel like could be real difference makers, but overall,
it's pretty underwhelming safety class for sure this year.
Definitely not like we've seen in years past.
Yeah, in the draft for sure. It's more deeper in the free agency for sure.
Right. I don't really like the move just because Marcus Williams is not a bad safety at all. He's pretty good.
Yeah. He's just not your top of the line elite type of.
He'll make a little over $11 million on the tag this year. Mm-hmm. But I feel like the Saints could have found someone, maybe not as good as him in free agency, but someone who's cheaper who could have similar production at that position. Mm-hmm. Obviously, they value his play and his presence in the locker room because that's a tight-knit group of guys down there in New Orleans.
Yeah.
It has been for years, and that's part of the reason they've been so successful. But I don't know if I necessarily agree with it. I'm leaning more towards bad move.
Yeah, I can see that.
Simply because of the cap situation. That's the biggest thing. If they were not in cap hell, I would say it was the smart thing to do.
Yeah, could be a panic move because they're about to lose a handful of guys in free agency too because they don't have any cap space too. So they're trying to keep at least somebody.
Yeah.
So they might overpay for him for
that's
decent production, but not elite production. Yeah, he's not elite safety, but yeah.
Next one, Justin Simmons, safety for the Denver Broncos. I say good deal.
Yeah, that's the one. I think I said good move on Friday. I'm surprised they haven't paid him yet. Yeah, their owner said.
Yeah, I agree.
Their owner said they wanted to give him the long-term deal. I don't know what they're waiting for. Then the market's been set for a year or two now, so you can go ahead and pay him whatever he wants.
He's going to end up being the highest paid safety in football. He's one of the best safeties in football.
Oh, he will be.
And this is the second year in a row.
He will be until this guy gets his contract.
While we're looking at jerseys, I just wanted to point out I'm rocking Grandmama today.
Grandmama.
In honor of the Hornets finally getting back over 500 again. They're so much fun to watch this year, but we can talk about that later if we have time.
At the end of it, we can.
Yeah, I say good deal for the Broncos.
For sure.
Maybe not necessarily for Simmons. I don't know how he feels about it. He wants to be there long term. The Broncos want him long term, so get a deal done.
Literally.
He'll make the same on this tag that Marcus Williams will make, a little over $11 million. Taylor Moton, right tackle for the Carolina Panthers. Good move or bad move?
Good move. They needed. Obviously, you said this as a Panthers fan yourself. You saw it coming. You knew they were about to do it. He already signed his tag, I'm pretty sure.
He did.
That's good for them. They need bolster up the offense line even more, I would say. You might even have some guys who were former Panthers who got cut recently might circle the block and come back.
Yeah, and we can talk about that a little bit later when we talk about free agency. But yeah, I say great deal. As a not just as a Panthers fan, but even looking at it objectively, Carolina needs a lot of help on that offensive line for whatever new quarterback they're going to have this upcoming season. Moton is by far their best offensive lineman. He's one of the better right tackles in the league. When people talk about top tackles, they don't talk about Taylor Moton, but the guy has started every game 3 years in a row now. In fact, over the last 3 years, he's only missed 6 total snaps. He's consistent. He shuts down any guy rushing on that side. It's very rarely that he gets beat. He's one of the better draft picks of Dave Gettleman's tenure. He was the last. Dave Gettleman being the old general manager, he was the last draft that
Dave Gettleman hit on a draft pick. What?
Well,
no kidding.
That draft was a good one for Carolina because that was the draft they got McCaffrey, Curtis Samuel, and Taylor Moton.
Yeah, that's a good draft.
Obviously they're about to lose Curtis Samuel in free agency, but either way, that was a great draft.
Yeah.
That was a great group of guys that they drafted.
100%.
And that all in the first 2 rounds because they traded back up, I believe, for Taylor Moton in that draft. So, good deal. Moton will make around $14 million this season under the tag. He wants a long-term deal with Carolina. Carolina obviously wants a long-term deal with him. So I say great deal.
Yeah, I agree.
All right, next one. Another safety. Marcus May, New York Jets. Good deal or bad deal?
I want to say bad deal, but the Jets got to keep some type of.
They need some sort of talent on defense.
In general.
In general, their
team.
roster is so devoid of talent.
Yeah, it's bad. It's awful. Awful roster. They need to have talent in general. So I would say bad deal, but I'll go good deal just because they have to pay somebody and they need some type of talent, some type of positivity there, so they can pay somebody.
I don't really have an opinion on this one either way. I don't really say like good deal or bad deal. All I'll say is have the Jets not learned their lesson with dealing with big name safeties after the whole Jamal Adams debacle. But they will, I think, keep Marcus May long term. So this is just obviously a placeholder, which is what the franchise tag is meant to be.
Yeah, literally.
But they want him long term. So all right, next one, New York Giants. Leonard Williams, defensive lineman. Good deal or bad deal?
I'll say good deal. Going from he was drafted by the Jets, correct? Yeah,
he was. Yeah,
traded to the
Giants. The Giants traded a 3rd round pick and some other stuff for him.
Yeah, he's been solid. I would say good for him. Good deal for him. They obviously another team in New York who needs defensive talent specifically.
Yeah. It's amazing that the best thing for his career was the Giants moving him inside. Because he was an edge rusher coming out. He played defensive end. Giants moved him defensive tackle. All of a sudden, he was playing fantastic. He's coming off a career year. He had 11 and a half sacks, 42 pressures, and 12 hurries. All of those 3rd amongst all defensive tackles in the NFL behind only Aaron Donald and Chris Jones. He led all defensive tackles with 30 quarterback hits at his position. So I say good deal.
Definitely a good deal, though.
The trade was initially seemed like a really stupid move because he was so underwhelming with the Jets.
Yeah. Then again,
But
he was playing when he was with the Jets. He was playing with who's next to Muhammad Wilkerson and Sheldon Richardson, I believe, with the defensive line at the
that
same
line,
time. Yeah,
big names, but guys who weren't really producing very well.
yeah, a
So
bunch of
I say good deal.
knuckleheads, bunch of knuckleheads for sure. But yeah, good deal for him. Good for he found his looks like he found his new position and whatnot.
Yeah,
So he
and
should
this is
be cashing in on the payday pretty soon. Then
and this is the second consecutive season that the Giants put the tag on Williams. And the next team also have done the same thing, tagging the same guy for the second year in a row. Brandon Scherf, guard for the Washington football team. Good deal or bad deal?
good deal. It's their best player on their offensive line. Probably the best player on their offense outside. No, definitely is the best player on their offense. I mean, Terry McLaurin's scary. Terry's a beast.
I agree with that. Or I'm sorry, I disagree with that. I say Terry is.
Yeah, but he's not more valuable than the right tackle. Obviously, no. Arguably one of the
not
best.
A right tackle. Scherf's a guard.
Is he? No, yeah.
Yeah,
I'm thinking of
Scherf
who was I
is a
thinking of?
guard.
I was thinking of Moten. I don't know why I was thinking of Moten.
You're thinking of Morgan Moses, their right tackle.
No, not Morgan Moses. He's not even very good. I was thinking of Taylor Moten. I confused him for half a second.
Oh,
But yes,
okay. You better
Brandon
put
Scherf,
some
yes.
respect on Moten's name now.
Come on, I had Brandon Sheriff in my Madden Ultimate team like 2 Maddens ago.
Oh, yeah, because
last time I used Madden,
anything.
he was the highest rated offensive lineman on my offensive line. He was a stud. All right, inside zone behind him. That man, 97-yard touchdowns with Tevin Coleman every day.
Running with Tevin Coleman.
But yeah, good deal for him. There's a lot of, now that we mentioned it, this is a lot of list. A handful of guys on this list that are on their second tag already. Like, I don't know what these teams are waiting for. These are stud players. You should be paying these guys already.
Well, I think the biggest reason for it is the cap space. Again, it's just crazy how the pandemic affected teams, affected the NFL as far as their cap situation goes. And we're seeing the results of it now with multiple guys being tagged for the second year in a row. And we've mentioned it multiple times now already, how cap situations have really made us look at these deals and these situations in a different sort of light. But I say good deal. He will make a good bit under it. He'll make around $18 million on this tag, which is crazy a lot for a guy who's a 29-year-old guard in the NFL. But he is their best offensive lineman, and you have to keep him. So I say good deal. All right. Next up, Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Chris Godwin, wide receiver. I say good deal. What do you think?
Good deal. I agree. It's one of Tom Brady's favorite targets. He's the younger of the two out of him and Evans.
Yep. Now, I didn't realize it was going to be this much on the tag. He's going to make 16.43 million on the tag this upcoming season.
The receiver tag is
that's
no
pretty,
joke. No joke.
I was about to say that's a pretty big number.
It goes up
for a guy who's
year.
wide receiver too.
Yeah, it goes up a lot.
Yeah, I still think it's a good deal though, just because it keeps Brady happy, and you keep arguably his favorite target, and you keep a weapon in that incredibly talented offense. I mean, that roster is the most talented one, top to bottom in the NFL right now. So you're just keeping it strong by doing that. So I say good move.
Yeah,
all right.
I agree with that.
All right, next one. I think we disagreed on this one when we talked about it when we recorded this the first time. Cam Robinson, tackle for the Jacksonville Jaguars. Good move or bad move?
I said bad move.
And I disagree with you, but tell me why you think it's bad.
Because he's always been underwhelming as offensive lineman in general. I think he had his best season this past year, though. I mean, I'm assuming that's why they put him on the tag, see if he could do it again or consistently and whatnot. Because he's been, up till this point in his career, he's been a bust. But, I understand it's the Jaguars. They got plenty of money, but it's the Jaguars. I understand Urban Meyer's there. They got a whole new regime and whatnot. Trevor Lawrence coming in. Cam Robinson, though. I probably would have kept my money just because you see a lot of it's a deep free agent class for offensive linemen in general, and the draft is very deep in offensive linemen as well, especially at tackle.
It is.
So that's why I would lean more so bad move, because underwhelming guard or tackle who up until this point in his career has underperformed greatly, and he was a top 2 pick. I think he was a second overall pick when he came out by the Rams.
He was actually a second round draft pick.
Cam Robinson, who am I thinking of?
I'm not sure.
Cam Robinson was second round pick?
Cam Robinson was actually a second round pick, yep.
From Alabama or Auburn?
I think Alabama.
I think it was
Pretty
Alabama.
sure it was Alabama. It might have been Auburn. I'm not sure. Cam Robinson. Leave a comment down below, everybody. Tell Cam Robinson went to college and call us fucking idiots while you're at it.
Who am I thinking of?
I don't know. But I disagree with you. I think it's a good move. Now he'll make
Alabama.
14.5 million under the tag, um, because he plays left tackle. Um, but I think it's a good move. He played a lot better this past season, and obviously he'll be tasked with protecting Trevor Lawrence next season. But obviously the Jaguars want to see if he can do it. Do it again and see how well he can do. I do get what you're saying though, as far as this is a pretty deep class of free agent and tackles available in the draft. So I get it to that extent, but at the same time, like, there's no guarantee any of these guys are gonna sign with you. You got Trent Williams, free agency. He's the biggest one.
Correction.
Mhm.
It was Greg Robinson who was drafted by the Rams and played at Auburn, and
Yes.
he was the second overall pick. He was the bust.
He was the terrible one, yeah.
Currently he was.
Yes.
I don't even think he's in the NFL anymore. No, he's not. The last time he played was on the Browns.
Yeah.
My bad. Cam Robinson. I do remember Cam Robinson. He's more recent. He's younger.
Yeah.
I guess it's good for him, then. I guess he hasn't been underwhelming. I take back everything I've said. Good.
Well, no, Cam Robinson has been pretty disappointing throughout his career up until last year.
Yeah, but he's still younger compared to Greg Robinson. I was
Right.
totally confusing
I
him
think
with
that-
a complete bust.
I think that also ties into this decision too, because Trent Williams, again, he's the top lineman in the free agent market, but he's 33 years old. Cam Robinson is, I believe, 26. So I say good deal. I say good deal. Sorry, I had to kill a gnat.
Go for it.
All right, last guy on our list who actually, it was reported today that he has no intention of signing the tag.
Uh-oh.
Allen Robinson, wide receiver for the Chicago Bears. I would have to say, for Allen Robinson, terrible move. Terrible move.
To not sign the tag, terrible move?
No, I'm saying it's a terrible move for him. Or, well, I mean, obviously he doesn't get a choice in it, but I'm saying, like, it's a terrible situation for him to have been tagged by Chicago,
yeah.
because now he has no say in where he goes, obviously.
Yeah, no. I mean, he could just sit out and not sign the tag. That's
He
fine.
could,
yeah.
and then
We've seen
a
it.
trade to a team.
Yeah, we've seen it before a few times. Le'Veon Bell didn't sign a tag.
But ultimately, he doesn't really have any control over where he goes.
Well, no, not until after the year, yeah.
No. He's due $18 million from this tag.
He'll sign it at some point, I'm sure. Especially, I bet you he signs it much faster if Russell Wilson comes to that building.
I agree with that. I think we talked about this last week. I'm not sure if we talked about it or I talked about it with somebody else. But the point is, I think that if Chicago does make a splash trade for Russell Wilson, Robinson will be more than willing to stay in Chicago.
For sure.
But I wouldn't want to stay if they're stuck with Foles or Trubisky or whoever they're going to have back there. I've heard
Me or you, yeah. It might be.
I've heard they might try to bring in Alex Smith.
Jesus.
So yeah,
No
way, Jose.
They just like mediocre quarterback. I don't know.
Obviously, I think from Chicago side of it, it's a good deal. You keep your best player on offense.
For sure.
And even if he doesn't stay, you've got a guy you can trade for at least a first-round pick. Get some asset back. So
good and bad, I guess. Bad for him, good for the team.
bad for him, good for Chicago. Yep, I agree.
It's usually
So
how it goes.
to an extent, I don't feel bad for him because he did make the decision to sign with Chicago when they had Trubisky. He had the chance to sign with Green Bay and play with Aaron Rodgers, but he went to Chicago instead.
Yep, he still gets slack for that to this day on Twitter. Online.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I see it a lot on Twitter. So I do get it from that perspective. But this guy is 27 years old. It's just crazy that Robinson is so young because he feels like he's been in the NFL forever now. But he's only 27 years old.
I think he came into the league when he was 20 or 21.
Yeah. Same thing as Mike Evans. Mike Evans has been in the league for 7 years, and the dude is like 27, 28. Yeah. So, but I say hashtag free Allen Robinson.
Oh, 100%. Free A-Rob.
Yeah. So
get that man a quarterback.
Facts. Go get Russell Wilson in Chicago, please.
If they knew what's good for him, yeah.
But the question now, JR, is if he refuses to sign the tag, where do the Bears go from here? Do you seek out a tag and trade situation? Do you just rescind the tag altogether? What do you do if you're Chicago?
I think they would probably go try to get tag and trade, try to get something for him, even though his trade value would be. Well, it wouldn't be. Would it be tanked? It would tank maybe slightly a little bit just because if they wait too long. That's like what most teams do.
And
Kind of
later
like
on,
the,
we're gonna talk about Deshaun Watson a little bit as far as like how waiting can tank your value. But go on. I didn't mean to interrupt you. I'm sorry.
who else was it? Oh, kind of like the Jarvis Landry from Miami to Cleveland, where he got franchise tagged and traded. Obviously, they were way more willing to do that then. They didn't have too much bad blood, but Allen Robinson's definitely not in a happy place right now with Chicago. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
I would say yeah. I mean, the Bears would probably tag and trade him instead of rescinding the tag, because teams are greedy and they're always going to get something in return, even if they lose, even if the trade value tanks a ridiculous amount. Even though it probably wouldn't tank that terribly for him, but it definitely wouldn't be maybe the market wouldn't be as booming as compared to when free agency first starts if they wait till after the draft or whatnot and to try to release his tag.
Yeah, for sure. I think if you're going to trade him, you need to obviously do it before the draft because Chicago does need a good bit of help.
Yeah, exactly.
Unless you're going to make this, like I said, this splash move for Russell Wilson. But yeah, I would say tag and trade is very much in play in this situation. Sure. Jared, there's still a ton of guys in the league, big name guys who have been cut. They're still getting cut. And we're going to see it, leading up to free agency. We're going to continue seeing guys cut for the sake of cap space. One big situation where the Chiefs cut both starting tackles, Eric Fisher and Mitchell Schwartz. And on our first recording session for this episode, we talked about that a little bit.
Yep.
But some of these big name guys, where do you think they go? Because, and we've talked about, in the last episode, we talked about where could some of these guys who are big name guys, where could they go? But now like I said, we've got these two guys, Eric Fisher and Mitchell Schwartz. Mitchell Schwartz, one of the best probably the best right tackle in the NFL. And Eric Fisher definitely wasn't one of the best
left tackles.
Left tackles. I can understand cutting him, but
yeah, he was definitely a bust up until Mahomes came for sure.
Yeah. But he did play better last year before he got hurt, and the year before that he really improved. So what do you think? Where did some of these guys land? I've got a list in front of me
of where they go, or just players in general.
Of the top, it's the top 101 NFL free agents right now.
Is it NFL.com, right?
It is. Aaron Jones was third on the list. Obviously, he re-signed with Green Bay. One guy I think everyone's got their eyes on, Kenny Golladay, who everyone expected the Lions to franchise tag Kenny Golladay, maybe a tag and trade situation with perhaps Miami. But no, Kenny Golladay is just an unrestricted free agent now. So what do you think? Where does he go?
Miami. Who else is a team that he's
the Giants, Ravens.
Yeah, Giants, Jets, Miami, Ravens would be a nice spot for sure. Giants, Jets, Ravens, Miami.
Patriots need wide receiver help desperately, but I
don't know if he would.
I don't know if Kenny Golladay. Yeah. I'll tell you this: I would love to see Cam Newton throwing to Kenny Golladay next year, though.
That wouldn't be bad at all. There's a handful of teams. He's gonna have a solid market for sure.
Yeah.
Any team,
and I think with a lot of these big name free agents, we're gonna see 1-2 year deals for pretty much, if not all of them, then the vast majority of them. We're not gonna see big 4-year deals handed out this offseason because of the cap situation.
Maybe only to a select few,
yeah. Yeah, maybe a select few. You're right. But let's go through some of these big name free agents and make some predictions about where they're going to go. We're not going to go through the whole list of 101, obviously, but we are going to go through. No, well, we are going to go through
a few. Of them. Yeah, for sure.
Corey Linsley, who was the Packers' center for a long time. He's 30 years old, but he's still one of the best interior linemen in the NFL. What do you think, JR? And before we begin this, I do want to say I think we're going to not necessarily repeat ourselves, but a lot of these guys in free agency are going to have the same big names attached, not big names, but the same team names attached to them. The Jets, the Jaguars, the Dolphins.
Yeah, for sure.
Teams that a lot of these teams at the top of the draft that have plenty of cap space.
Exactly. Yeah.
I could actually see Corey Linsley ending up in Arizona though.
Yeah, that'd be a good. That should be a good move. It should be offensive line should definitely be the top of the Cardinals list for sure.
That and secondary because they've lost, I think their top 2 or 3 corners now in this free agency period.
Pat Pete's gone, obviously.
Pat Pete's gone.
I don't know who their corners are in Arizona. But yeah, Corey Linsley should go to Arizona. That'd be a good spot for him. Or he'd come to Pittsburgh for a little bit of change since Marquise Pouncey retired. Maybe the Chargers go try to get some offensive line because they lost their Pouncey brother. They've always needed offensive line in general. I think they just cut somebody on their offensive line who was a starter too. I forget.
I believe it was Kelvin Beachum.
No, that was the Cardinals. Chargers.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm going to be completely honest with you. I've got a movie on in the background, and I was watching it while you were talking. I figured you were talking about the Cardinals. So
I switched it to the
Chargers. The Chargers won't bring in
another
Linsley.
team.
They've got Forrest Lamp. Or is Lamp a free agent?
Is he a center? Or is he a guard? I'm not sure.
I don't know, actually.
I'm not sure either.
I
know
think
they need defense. They just cut somebody on their offensive line. Was it the former Panther they cut?
Trey Turner, yep.
Yeah.
Trey Turner, and I will talk about Trey Turner here in a few minutes because now he's a free agent.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, Linsley definitely go somewhere like
Chargers,
where
Cardinals, a young team with a quarterback who's up and coming, so they can get some more offensive line depth and bulk up the offensive line for sure.
And Linsley is 30 years old, so to be kind of that guy on the offensive line that can help command younger guys and mentor them, kind of control because the center really controls an offensive line more than people think about.
The whole line, yeah. Exactly.
So, all right, two edge rushers, both former Ravens, Yannick Ngakoue and Matthew Judon. Obviously, Ngakwe's younger; he's 26.
Yep.
Judon 29, but we kind of saw both of them really fall off this past season.
Kind of plateau, yeah, they did.
In Baltimore.
Yeah.
Judon, like I said, he's 29, and he just had a great year. Not this past season, but the year before that. The Ravens tagged him, and he kind of became an irrelevant name as far as pass rushers go. So, wouldn't it be something if these two ended up back on the same team again?
I could see Yannick staying out of the two. I think Judon's long gone. No, I don't know where he's.
I think they're both long gone.
I think so. But they need a pass rusher, so why would they not? And they traded a pick. They traded picks.
They traded a late round pick for a couple of later round picks for Ngakoue, a couple of day 3 picks. I believe a 4 and a 6.
Oh, I don't know. I thought it was a 3rd and something.
Sure. I don't think they traded a 3.
Because I remember the Vikings. I forget.
Exactly right, because the Vikings traded for him, and they traded, I want to say a 3 and a 5, and then I think the Ravens traded a 4 and a 6. So you basically, if you're the Vikings, you lose a player and you are trading down in result. But I could see both of these guys ending up on, like I said, one of these teams at the top of the draft, maybe the Jets. Because
Ravens traded a 3 and 5 for Ngakoue.
Okay. Yep.
This year's 3rd and a 5.
That sounds right.
So, I mean, if they could keep one of the two, it would be Ngakoue for sure. He's younger, slightly better. But I don't know if they will keep either one. Definitely not keeping Judon. He's more of he's already a has-been at this point. I don't know where he'll go. He probably goes somewhere for a 2-year, 3-year deal, try to get some type of deal from somebody. He probably won't. I don't know if he'll sign right away because he's not one of the top pass rushers, obviously. He's not the Duprees. He's not even better than Ngakoue.
Yeah.
Who else is that? Jadeveon Clowney still might get a deal before him. Probably will get more money than him just because Clowney has been elite at something. He's not necessarily
it's crazy.
Rusher, but.
It's crazy because if you look at these pass rushers that are available right now in free agency or are going to be available, 2 years ago, people like these guys, all these teams would have been, licking their chops at the thought of bringing one of these guys in. But now all these guys are very underwhelming because they're coming off years where they had big years. They overperformed, and now they've kind of shown their, I don't want to say true colors, but definitely not the production that teams are looking for. Bud Dupree, Matt Judon,
maybe Shaq Barrett.
No,
I'm not mentioning him just because.
That's
the only reason why I haven't brought his name up because I don't think he leaves at all. Tom Brady just legally signed his extension and freed up like $20 million,
he did.
And that's enough for Shaq Barrett right there. Boom.
Yeah, and that's something that we didn't really talk about. The fact that Brady did sign a 1-year extension with Tampa Bay gives them more cap room. I believe $19 million in cap space. That's a big thing for them as far as like re-signing their own guys.
Also, Carl Lawson out there from the Bengals. I don't know why they haven't tagged him or paid him a little bit.
Really, kind of a not definitely not lesser known, but kind of
yeah. He's definitely lesser known for sure, but he's 26. He's good, solid. I don't know if he's not an edge one. He's more of an edge two. You know, he's your Ngakwe, Bud Dupree level. Trey Hedrickson from the Saints, free agent, 26 as well. Had his best year of his career just in general this past year. Became the Saints' best edge rusher past Cam Jordan. Cam Jordan only had like 7 sacks. Trey Hedrickson had like 14 or 15, I believe. I think he was second or tied for first in the league in sacks this year. Something like that. It was almost ridiculous. So good for him. He's a free agent. He's going to get paid from somewhere.
Yeah. A couple of guys who we thought, again, were going to be franchise tag candidates ended up not happening. Hunter Henry and Jonnu Smith, both tight ends for the Chargers and Titans, respectively. What do you think both of them end up? I would say at least one of them ends up in New England.
Yeah, exactly. One of them has to end up in New England with Cam Newton. He needs some help. When Tom Brady was there, obviously he abused the 2 tight end set and whatnot, so did Josh McDaniels. So you would expect Hunter Henry or Jonnu Smith to be in a Patriots uniform relatively soon. Right. For sure, especially with the way the Patriots using the tight end. I'm shocked the Chargers didn't want to keep Hunter Henry. You know, they got their
I'm not.
They got their young guy in Herbert, but
I figured they would want to move on Hunter Henry with that injury history of his. And he's
but he's really good though. I don't understand.
He is. He has the potential to be one of the elite guys.
Yeah, for sure. He
at
got
that
top
position,
5 potential for sure.
Which there's not a lot of elite guys at tight end. There's really 2. You got Kittle and Kelsey, and that's really it as far as elite tight ends. Great tight ends, you've got Andrews and Waller. But the tight end position is probably the weakest it's been in a long time in the NFL at this point. So, we talked about the Patriots. I would love to see them get one of these guys for Cam Newton because, number one, during his time in Carolina, Greg Olsen was obviously his number 1 target for forever.
Exactly.
And he did a fantastic job. They just had that chemistry. But I've also been saying for a long time, especially when Cam was on the Panthers, I would love to see an offense where Cam Newton was the quarterback focus more on 2 tight end sets. His rookie season, they ran a lot of those because they had Greg Olsen and Jeremy Shockey that year. That was obviously at the end of Shockey's career, but he still did pretty good things for Carolina that season. And I would love to see a team just kind of utilize that a little bit more, not just as like you've got extra protection in there for Cam, but just see how he does with it because obviously now in the NFL there's much more spread offenses. You've got 4 or 5 wide receiver sets for the majority of the game for both teams. But I think for a quarterback like Cam, having that 2 tight end set would be far more beneficial to him in his game.
For sure, especially now
in
this age that he's getting to, for sure.
Right.
For sure now. Shout out Jeremy Mcshock, another pro Cam.
I would love to see Carolina get one of these guys. They're going to be a little bit too pricey, I think.
Maybe Jonnu Smith might be a lot cheaper than Hunter Henry. Maybe the same.
Yeah,
they might get the same exact contract. Who knows? It's very possible.
They could. I would still love one of them in Carolina because God knows they need tight end help badly. And I was. Let me just say, I was very wrong about Ian Thomas. I thought he'd be a fantastic tight end for Carolina. I saw flashes of his game when he was younger. I thought he was going to be fantastic. I was like, we're going to lose Olsen, but Thomas is going to step in and play great. And he did nothing. They played Chris Manhertz as the starting tight end this past year, and when Ian Thomas was on the field, he did nothing. So I was very, very wrong about Ian Thomas. Curtis Samuel. He ends up in Miami. Where do you think he goes?
Curtis Samuel, little slot guy. He could end up in any team. Could really use a slot, that type of explosive guy from the slot and whatnot. Little playmaker.
Guys, before we move on,
finish free agency talk.
Yeah. Before we move on from this, we do want to address another thing that has happened today, right after the Drew Brees thing. This episode is going to be edited in a way that kind of jumps right into this, but this is something that we have to talk about. Adam Schefter tweeted, "Saints are restructuring Taysom Hill's contract to create cap room. Here are the details: 4 years, $140 million contract extension, but all years are avoidable, and this is really a mechanism to free up the cap space for this year. It actually saves the Saints over $7.5 million against the cap this year. So basically, voidable years in the contract are, you could consider them to be fake contract years.
Yeah, but it's basically
to manipulate the salary cap. The end result is basically that the player is getting less money in the present tense, but they're still got to pay the bill later, which is what the Saints are great at. They're great at kicking cap down the road.
Mm-hmm.
You said that last episode, JR. So Taysom Hill's not actually getting this money
at all, yeah.
But
especially you've seen teams do it a little more so this offseason because of the cap going down. So a lot of teams have signed guys to extensions to where they can kick they'll still take a little dead money hit for making him sign that type of contract or whatnot, but it's not going to be. They can literally opt out right after this season, which they're more than likely to do because they're not, if they're mentally challenged enough to pay Taysom Hill $140 million for 4 years. Holy.
So there's a couple of angles to this, JR, that we should talk about. The first being, does this mean that Taysom Hill is the Saints quarterback for next year and moving forward? Instead of them bringing back Jameis Winston for a year, do you think that they roll with Taysom Hill next year, quarterback?
No. I still think Jameis is their guy. Taysom Hill is just their at this point, he's just their bridge guy. He's their gadget player, obviously, too. So, but yeah, that's a disgusting amount of money. But Taysom Hill is just their gadget guy. He's not he better not see 1 year of that 4 years, $140 million.
I disagree. I think that the Saints roll with Taysom Hill at quarterback this year now. I don't think that they would have done something like this if they didn't. And Sean Payton has talked about before how he believes in Taysom Hill and how he thinks he's the future once Breeze is done.
Mm-hmm.
And I think this move kind of confirms that they're going to try to roll with him at least 1 year at quarterback and see what he can do. Obviously, Payton sees something in him that literally nobody else does. But I don't know, man. The other angle of this is, and you talked about this last episode, like I mentioned, kicking cap space down or kicking deals. I'm sorry, like the money you got to pay these guys down the road.
Yeah.
Is this something that you think we see more of this offseason from teams? Or these kind of voidable contracts, or these voidable years in contracts?
Yeah, I mean, you've already started seeing some of it a little bit this offseason. People signing extensions, or not too many extensions, but teams adding extensions. I forget who did it. A few teams already added voidable years to a few contracts. I think Tom Brady was the one who just did it. That's what I was thinking of. He added voidable years so he could free up almost $20 million this year. Who else did it? Somebody else did it. I think one or two teams, 2 or 3 other teams might have did it. I can't remember exactly who the players were, but I would say no, not for players in general, not like free agents, no, because they're not going to sign a voidable year contract where it's basically a 1 year deal. That'd be kind of dumb for them. But I've seen a few teams do that with players already on their rosters with extensions and whatnot and creating space. Steelers did it with Big Ben. I'm drawing blank now. I'm starting to recognize the names. It's more so the aging quarterbacks. I'm starting to feel like you'll see them add a 1 or 2 year extension, voidable years, to where the team can get out of it, take a little dead money hit, but still get out of the contract without any real repercussions. So yeah, I could definitely see that with more aging guys for sure.
I think you're right. I think we could see that a little bit more. But man, we just wanted to talk about that for a second, guys, because that caught our eyes and we were like, "What the fuck? We have to talk about this." So,
that was nuts.
Yeah. So let's jump right back into the free agency thing. We were talking about Curtis Samuel, as far as where he could go. I still say Miami. Now you said something about him being a slot guy, and I do want to address that. Curtis is not a slot guy, man.
He can play in the slot.
No. He can. That's not what I'm saying. I think that there is a stereotype or a stigma around Samuel that's like what his main thing is as a slot guy.
It's just
because I feel like,
best at
kind of what Carolina may have drafted him to do. But the fact of the matter is he's doing in the NFL what he did at Ohio State. He's playing everywhere.
Yeah,
outside,
he's a gadget for sure.
Playing as a tailback.
Yeah.
He's a gadget player, exactly. He just put up 1,000 scrimmage yards this past season. It was his best year so far as a pro. He played fantastic. He, as fast as he is, and I was talking with a buddy of mine, and he made a good point.
And realistically, he's going to end up in Kansas City. You just told me.
Basically,
that's
yes.
what you just told me. That was the first team that popped ahead. Yeah. They need a receiver. They're going to be in the free agent market for a receiver.
Yeah.
If he takes a little less than money,
I wonder if he does go to Kansas
that little
City.
fucker might end up in Kansas City now that I'm thinking about it. I'm gonna be pissed.
Another one of those guys. Yeah,
I'm gonna be pissed.
No, I think he does end up in Miami. But the point is, I was talking with a buddy of mine the other week, and he was saying how it's frustrating how fast Curtis Samuel is. That with his route running, he really wasn't able to create separation for his first couple years in the NFL. And this past season, we saw his route running improve tremendously, and part of it being Joe Brady, the offensive coordinator in Carolina, his system to get Samuel open. Just a lot of pre-snap motion, which we see all over the NFL nowadays. That's the big thing. Guys moving around.
Except for in Pittsburgh, you don't see pre-snap motion because it was stagnant.
Well, yeah, true. But we saw a lot of that in Carolina this past year.
For sure.
Curtis being at the forefront of that. Obviously, him and DJ Moore both. But the point is, Samuel is, in today's sort of offenses in the NFL, and we talked about this earlier, spread offense is the thing in the NFL now with 4 or 5 wide receiver sets. Samuels is really the perfect weapon for any offense that wants to run that kind of thing with a lot of pre-snap motion, spread sets, 4 or 5 guys out
Rams,
there.
Rams, Chiefs.
He can play, but he can play outside, inside, tailback. You name it.
Yep.
Samuel can do it.
Yep. He did it in college.
I think he's going to be a great weapon for whoever he goes to. I still say Miami. I still think that they snag him. And, I think he would play great for them. I would love to see Samuel in those clothes because I love those Miami jerseys. Man. He's obviously not going to come back to Carolina.
He's
going to be too pricey. I'd love for him to come back to Carolina. He's a great player and he's a great young guy, but he's just too pricey. So I say Miami for him.
Okay.
What do you think? You think?
I said he could fit. I said I'm gonna say Kansas City, but he could fit. He's a prototypical weapon for any offense today. Any type of creative offense. He can fit in any system. He just plug him in and give him the ball. He's gonna make plays. Yeah. So he could literally go anywhere. He's like the perfect fit for any team. He can adjust to any type of play style, especially if a team has like a starting veteran quarterback. I mean, you saw what he did in Carolina this past year. They used him correctly, and he did it with Teddy Bridgewater and put up 1,000 scrimmage yards. Imagine what if he did with Pat Mahomes and the Kansas City offense, or the Rams and Matt Stafford out there, and use him as a scat type of guy. The way they use their motion and their reverses and whatnot. That was with Curtis Samuel, and they're lacking. That's one thing they lost since they had lost Brandon Cooks, was a little speed receiver. They obviously have their Cups and their Robert Woods, but they're more possession receivers. They're better route runners and whatnot. But they don't have the gadget guy that they're.
No, they don't have the cap space for it. But.
No, they don't. That's the one thing they would have to do, is they would have to create the cap space for it.
I think that would be a really good offense for him. I didn't really think about that, but he would be a great fit in that Rams offense. So.
Another offense he could fit in anywhere for real. Yeah.
Steelers free agent wide receiver. Let's go from my team to your team now. You know who I'm going to say? Boo Boo Schuster.
as AB called it.
Yeah. Juju Smith-Schuster, where do you think he lands? Shit. I say the Jets.
You think he goes to the Jets?
I think so. I think
if Darnold's traded, I don't think so.
I
said if Darnold's traded, which he more than likely will be.
No, Darnold's getting traded. Darnold's definitely
exactly. So I don't think he would want to go there, because Darnold. I would only say he would go to the Jets because Darnold was his boy. That was his college quarterback at USC. They played together. They balled out there.
Right.
So that's
I still think he ends up there. I think the Jets are obviously in the market for.
I would say a team like Miami.
Everybody and anybody.
I would say a team like Miami, maybe the Raiders in Vegas.
I heard
the Raiders are gonna make a run after him.
The Raiders have a knack for going after former Steelers receivers.
Yes, they do. They're very notorious for
doing that. I can see that. I don't see Miami.
It doesn't work out very well for them at all. It doesn't work out for them well at all, actually, in general. I shouldn't say very well.
I mean, they traded a 3rd-round pick for Martavis Bryant and then cut him very shortly after.
Yeah. So. Also traded a 3rd-round pick for Antonio Brown, and he never played it.
He never played it down.
He
never played a game for them. And then was like, "Oh, thank God, I'm free. I'm gonna go play with Tom Brady." That dude went. That dude did everything wrong and went and got a fucking Super Bowl ring. There's no justice in this fucking world, man.
At all. You know how they say sometimes karma come back around. Karma, sometimes it really don't come back around for certain people. It really don't.
Who was I talking to the other day? I was saying
sometimes it does.
Look at Antonio Brown. Karma's not real.
For some people, karma is not real. It does not come back around. Carmen gonna get your ass. Well, I'm waiting for it to come get Antonio Brown because they ain't got him yet.
We've all been waiting.
There's some evil people. Karma's never come and got these people.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Who
else we got on the list?
So I say Juju, Jets.
I say Raiders, Miami.
Okay.
In that range.
Let's talk about Mitchell Schwartz. Best right tackle in the NFL. Where's he going now?
Young team who has a young quarterback and needs offensive line. So maybe the Cardinals are in that same realm if they need a tackle or not. Maybe the Chargers. I don't know. I don't know what their cap space is like. They have what pick? What pick do the Chargers have? In the 12s? In the teens?
I think probably.
I think they're in the teens. I forget exactly what pick they have. I don't know if their draft process is looking at offensive linemen.
It needs to be.
It should be.
It definitely needs to be.
I would say young, promising team with a quarterback.
I didn't realize this. Schwartz is 32 years old.
Mm-hmm.
There have been rumors that he could retire.
Oh, Chargers have the 13th pick, and I have them in my mock draft drafting offensive linemen. So I could see that him doing there for a short year deal, and then they could take best player available at 12 or 13. Maybe that's a Kyle Pitts if he falls to 13 or something. Maybe that's a Jalen Waddle or something, that type of nature. Get Herbert another weapon. Maybe I wouldn't say ETN because they have Austin Eckler, so probably not running back. Definitely maybe wide receiver at 13, best player available at that point at 13. If they snag Mitchell Schwartz, I could see that. Those type of teams, Cardinals, Chargers, again.
I have a feeling Mitchell Schwartz might retire. He might just go ahead and call it quits.
That's very possible too. You've seen that more so this era of football with guys retiring at 30 or mid 30, early 30s. You've seen guys call it careers for sure. So that's always a possibility these days. Who else we got?
Mike Hilton, another former Steeler, arguably the best slot corner in the NFL.
Yeah, he's gonna get.
Where do you see him going?
I don't know. I don't know. Because I don't know. I don't know. Because he's not just like your typical slot corner. Because he's not like the greatest in coverage. He's more so your blitzer. He's an elite tackler, great in run support. I don't know if he goes somewhere and teams wouldn't use him the same way the Steelers defense used him the last three seasons, and that was like literally the best corner that they've had in recent times that they've grown, I should say, because the ones they've drafted, whether that be the Artie Burns and guys like that who fell flat on their face, Artie Burns, Sean Davis, Antoine Blake, Ross Cockrell. Those guys were never good. Some of them are the guys that they drafted early.
I will say that Ross Cockrell, when he was healthy, actually played pretty well with Carolina. I was actually pretty impressed with how he played.
That man got bullied like a I don't know what, like a toddler in Pittsburgh. Holy.
He ended up getting hurt, and Carolina obviously didn't re-sign him. Mm-hmm. But Cockrell was not a terrible corner for us when he played with us. And the guy who replaced him, the Rasul Douglas, he's a free agent, and I would love for Carolina to bring him back. He played fantastic. I talked about this in the first recording session of this episode, but I would love to bring Rasul Douglas back on a 1-2 year deal. If it wasn't for Dante Jackson taking a huge step forward last season, Douglas would have been our best corner.
Damn. But yeah.
And I have a feeling that Dante Jackson is going to be James Bradbury 2.0. He's going to be a Carolina corner who doesn't get re-signed, gets the bag somewhere, and balls the fuck out. Bradbury was one of the best corners in the NFL this year in New York, and I'm sick that we didn't re-sign him over fucking Shaq Thompson.
Damn,
you didn't. You need secondary help desperately, so you're gonna not sign your best corner and instead give an off-ball linebacker who's been disappointing as a first-round pick his whole career a big contract extension. That makes total sense. Way to go, Carolina. You are the pinnacle of great decisions.
What about John Johnson? Safety.
I love John Johnson to Carolina, but I think he's going to get a big payday somewhere, maybe Jacksonville.
Somewhere for sure.
He's one of the better coverage safeties in the league. He played fantastic for the Rams. Man.
Yeah, he did. He's a baller for sure.
He's a baller. So wherever he goes, I think Johnson's going to be one of the rare guys this offseason that gets a pretty nice deal.
I can see that.
Not just a 1-2 year deal. I think he gets a 4-year
deal. Yeah, he could
real good, real big money deal, well into the double digits.
Yep.
And that's why I think he goes somewhere like Jacksonville.
I could see that. What about veterans as in Sherman and Jason Verrett? You think they go to
That's it. That's a good question.
Thing?
And we talked about them in like I said, the first recording session for this episode too. Both guys who were with the Niners and were considered to be just done. And both are, kind of older. I mean, Sherman's obviously older. Verrett's only 30. But I think that they can still have huge impacts wherever they go, as long as they can stay healthy. That's obviously the big thing.
Yep, for both of them, for sure.
But I like Verrett as a low risk, high reward signing. I think, and Sherman too. I think they both get 1-2 year deals.
Yep, for sure.
Wherever they go. And it's hard to say. Maybe Arizona lands one of them. Because they need, like I said, they need corner help. I love Verrett, or I love either one of them in Carolina.
Yeah, I would take Verrett instantly in Pittsburgh on a 1-year deal. I mean, obviously we don't have money like that, but I would love to. I've always been a big fan of both of them, but Verrett I've always liked a bit too when he was in Chargers for the most part. When he was healthy, he was legit.
Yeah, he was fantastic. That Cardinals, that Chargers secondary was crazy. They had Casey Hayward, Jason Verrett, and Desmond King, along with who's their safety? Their young safety that Derwin James. James.
Yeah, Derwin James never healthy.
Yeah.
Unfortunately,
just that entire secondary could have been so fantastic. Obviously, it didn't work out that way, but it's crazy that they had all 4 of those guys at one point.
Yep.
Jaquiski Tart is another safety I feel like could get a 1-year, is like Verrett and Sherman, is going to get maybe a 1-2 year deal, and he's just going to play fantastic. He is an injury risk player. I mean, he's 29 years old, but he's really a tone setter on defense with how explosive he is. So I think he gets, I don't know where Tart could end up. Maybe Carolina signs him to a 1-year deal. They need another safety because they cut Trey Boston. Maybe they bring in Tart. I don't know. What do you think?
That wouldn't be bad. Just because Tart, I've never been a big fan. He was
Really?
I mean, he was solid. I mean, he's made some flash plays. I've seen a few highlights here and there on SportsCenter or whatnot. A few one-handed interceptions, but again, that's another free agent in the 49ers secondary.
Yep.
Jesus, that's 3 of them. My goodness, they need a corner instantly. Holy, or DB something.
Here's another one. Quan Williams, another corner that the Niners are losing to free agency.
Their entire secondary.
Their entire secondary to free agency.
What the hell are they doing?
I know. It's crazy. It's crazy.
Jesus. Who else we got? I just scrolled right past it. Oh, Kyle Juszczyk, another 49er. Little weapon out of the backfield for some teams.
Who's that now?
Kyle Juszczyk, Juice, fullback.
Oh yeah. No, I think he resigns.
Think he stays? Okay.
Yeah, I think he stays.
What about
let's do one more.
Who's that?
Kyle Van Noy.
Where would he end up? I don't know.
I could see him going back to New England.
It's always a possibility for sure. I wouldn't doubt it for sure.
I can see him definitely going back to New England.
Or some type of contender. Obviously, he was in Miami and got the short end of the stick after signing that big deal. 1 year.
And it's crazy because Miami's not strapped for cap space, so...
Yeah, no. I don't know. I guess they
I know a lot of Dolphins fans were really confused by just releasing him flat out. Now, it was reported they were going to release him. Then it was, maybe they'll trade him instead, which I could see happening.
Who?
Kyle Van Noy.
They already released him, though.
Oh, did they officially release him?
Yeah. They tried to. What's the name of the guy?
Okay, cool.
Before we move to the next topic, I want to add these next 4 running backs. Marlon Mack, Duke Johnson, Tevin Coleman, or Mike Davis. Any of the 4, can you come to Pittsburgh, please? That's all. I'll take any.
I would love Mike Davis back in Carolina, man.
I'll take any of the 4.
Yeah. You'd love Tevin Coleman. That's a dream coming true.
Oh, my God. I'd buy his jersey instantly. What?
Yeah. I'd like all those guys in Carolina. Duke Johnson would be really good, I think, in our system. And who was the first one you said? Marlon Mack?
Yep, Marlon Mack, yep.
Marlon Mack deserves the bag, man. That guy is probably the most underrated running back in football.
Yeah, he just tore his Achilles, and so it's
Yeah,
unfortunate.
but either way, that dude is uh,
He was
he's
a
the real
baller.
deal.
Yeah, he was
People don't talk enough about him, obviously because of Jonathan Taylor in Indianapolis.
Jonathan Taylor
But Mack,
definitely took over.
and that was kind of why I was a little bit confused by the drafting
Pick.
of Jonathan Taylor by Indianapolis,
Yeah.
because they had Marlon Mack, and I was like, this dude's already, and obviously it was a good decision.
Yeah, obviously
Mack got hurt.
Jonathan Taylor takes over and boom,
Right.
never looks back. So now, yeah, it's his backfield for
Right.
sure. He was a stud
But,
every year in college. He ran for 2,000 yards almost every season. That man was otherworldly. So I get it.
But I really like Marlon Mack a lot. So
Yeah,
Um,
I've grown to like him. At first, I was like, meh, because they kind of like eased him in. He wasn't necessarily like the go-to, right away, like the way Jonathan Taylor became. Then again, different level of running back. One's a little better than the other, so I can see why they were a little hesitant at first for some certain guys.
yeah. Okay. So, any predictions about guys in the league that could still be cut or traded before the start of the new league year? Obviously, the big names we've got: Deshaun Watson, Russell Wilson, Sam Darnold's probably going to get traded. But any guys that could end up getting traded off the top of your head that aren't these big name guys?
That aren't big name guys.
Yeah, I think Teddy Bridgewater gets moved.
I think my Steelers are cutting Vince Williams in the next day or two, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
Who else could get cut or traded? Maybe Von Miller's situation still pending.
I think he stays in Denver.
I think so. Even though the situation is still looming, they still don't have an outcome necessarily. So it's always it could make a turn at some point. Who else could get cut? I don't know. I'm trying to think. Any other vets that could get cut? I'm sure there will be some others, as obviously tomorrow when tampering period starts, and then 2 days after you got to get under the cap hit, so you probably see a few more guys, maybe a few notable names off there, but I can't think of any off the top of my head that would get right now that are on the chopping block necessarily.
Yeah, there were a couple trades earlier. The Texans and Dolphins swapped linebackers. So I can't remember who it was off the top of my head.
Bernard McKinney or something.
Bernard McKinney and Shaq Lawson, I believe it was. Yeah.
Yeah.
And they also swapped late round picks along with that. So that move actually saves the Dolphins a few million on cap too.
Yep.
And they get in my opinion, a better linebacker. Trent Brown, former Raiders tackle, who goes back to the Patriots for a late round pick.
And then the Patriots.
And then Patriots traded away Marcus Cannon, another tackle, to the Texans for some basically more pick swaps, all day 2 and day 3 picks. I think from rounds 3 on. So I think we're going to be seeing a lot more of this as far as like any trades that happen. It's going to be basically like just swapping picks along with these guys getting traded. But off the top of my head, no, I can't think of any big name guys that end up getting traded.
Yeah, besides obviously maybe Deshaun Watson and Russell Wilson within the next month or so. But
right, I do want to say for a minute, because I forgot to mention this. Trey Turner, guard for Carolina, was drafted by them years ago. Was traded before last season for Russell Okung. Okung's a free agent now, along with Trey Turner. The Chargers cut Trey Turner, saved a good bit of money. He kind of disappointed for them, but I would love him back in Carolina because they do need, like I said earlier, they need help on the offensive line. And both their starting guards from last season, no longer with the team, John Miller and Chris Reed. So I'd love for them to bring back Trey Turner. He's still pretty young. I think he's 27, 28. Bring him home. Why not,
Yeah, very, very, very possible. Especially offensive linemen circling the block. We're going to have a few. We already have one came back to Pittsburgh. Probably have another one here, Kelvin Beachum, here soon.
Yeah, I read that Kelvin Beachum could go back. So, all right. So we're trying to cut down our episode time. Our first 2 episodes were 2 hours. We're trying to shoot for an hour and a half in this one, guys. So we're going to roll with one more topic, and then we're going to be done. So you guys don't have to sit here for another 30, 40 minutes and listen to us ramble on.
Literally.
Our last topic, we have to talk about this. I think we've talked about it in our first 2 episodes. Deshaun Watson. Because how can you not talk about Deshaun Watson at this point?
Exactly.
My question, JR, is what are the Texans waiting right now for a Deshaun Watson trade? Are they waiting for the right deal? Are they waiting for a king's ransom? Are they even going to end up trading him before the draft? And will they completely tank his draft value? So that's my question. I'll let you start.
I couldn't tell you what they're waiting for. I mean, obviously whoever calls is offering king's ransom. Nobody's gonna try to shortchange them. But the longer they wait, especially like post draft or maybe OTA training camp time, and they're forced to force their hand. He forces their hand because he's gonna sit out, whatnot. Then the trade value would tank a little bit. It's not gonna tank like a ridiculous amount, but it's still not gonna make the full king's ransom where it would have been like right now or today, tomorrow, next week, within the next month. It would definitely tank a little bit. It's still gonna be a pretty penny because it's Deshaun Watson. He's prime quarterback, top 3 in football, and he's ripe age of 24, 25. But I don't know what they're waiting for. I mean, you see it all the time in sports with the superstar player who upset with this current situation in certain teams and force the team to trade him, and the team never necessarily gets back the team who's giving up the superstar never really gets the best end of the deal because you're giving up the superstar and you're getting a bunch of picks who are 50-50. You gotta pray and hope you hit on half of them at least. And if you're a team who's giving up the superstar and you're the franchise like the Texans, who don't have the greatest of draft history or the greatest success as a franchise in general, even though they are a fairly new franchise compared to most of these franchises in football. And it's a tough thing, but I mean, hey, these players in the NFL are getting having more of a voice these days compared to previous years. They're taking more of an NBA approach and whatnot, where they're becoming more of a face. It's not just the last names on the jerseys. You can recognize who they are and whatnot. They're definitely getting more vocal for sure, which is good for them. But from the team aspect, I can see why they'd be kind of reluctant. But I mean, you don't want to tank even the slightest. You don't want to lose out on extra 2 second-round picks and then maybe you get a return of another somewhat younger stud player. Just because you're being stubborn and not giving up your franchise quarterback, who's clearly not happy.
I do disagree with one thing you said. You said that the team that trades the superstar is generally going to lose the trade. I don't really agree with that.
No?
No, because here's the deal. It's very rare that such a huge name superstar like Deshaun Watson in the NFL gets traded. Now, I think over the last few years we're seeing it more commonly, but the point is the Texans are in a fantastic position as far as if you trade Watson, you obviously have to rebuild a lot at this point. But you're in a great position to get the assets that you need to build back up. So I disagree with the notion that if you trade him, you're automatically losing the trade. I don't agree with that. If you don't trade him, you're losing. And that's why I think that the Texans are being really stupid in holding on to Watson and basically saying, he's our guy, we're sticking with him, we're not trading him. Now, this could be a strategy to try and up the value of what you're going to get back. Maybe the idea here is that by holding on to him and saying that, you're forcing teams to offer more to try to get him. What I think is happening is that the Texans genuinely believe they can convince Watson to play for them anyway, when it's obvious he has no intention of doing so ever again.
Yeah, good luck with that.
Yeah. And I think what's going to happen is they're going to wait too long, and they're going to ruin the value of whatever they get back and end up losing the trade in that regard. I think that if in the next week or two they make a huge trade where they get a ton of picks back, maybe a couple of players, they win that trade.
That's the thing. I don't think they win it initially because you don't know what those picks
I
turn.
do.
I don't think so because
And,
you don't see what
well,
those picks
obviously you
turn
have to hit on
into.
the picks.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Obviously you do have to hit on the picks, but the point is,
That's the whole point.
right, yeah, I agree, but I agree you have to hit on the picks. But I disagree that you automatically lose the trade, man, because in this scenario,
For
you're
the
not winning by holding on to them. There's no
Yeah. Their team doesn't win regardless either way right away in my eyes because when you obviously you give up a superstar, okay, you take the loss. Then you get a handful of picks. Okay, you're gonna get 3 first, 2 twos, and a young promising player, a young rising player, or 2 maybe, depending on the package
right.
and the
Let's
team.
just take Carolina for example. Any deal for Watson would have to be
3 firsts.
multiple firsts, multiple seconds, maybe a third. Christian McCaffrey, Teddy Bridgewater, and maybe one more player. Um, but the point is, if you make that trade, if you're the Texans, you don't lose because not only do you have a chance to rebuild your squad, you've got a chance to go get another quarterback. You're not Watson's never going to suit up for them again ever. It doesn't
Yeah.
matter if they don't trade him. He'll sit on the bench. He doesn't
Yeah.
care if he loses that money. It's a matter of he doesn't want to play for him anymore because of what they've done, and I don't blame him, and I don't think
Exactly.
anybody blames him.
Yeah.
But the point is, they do not lose if they trade him for a king's ransom. There's just no way
They do it
that
at I say they do when they trade. Okay, they get 3 firsts, 2 seconds, a young pass rusher or offensive lineman who's becoming a stud, maybe a third and whatnot in there, a swap of thirds or something, third for a fourth. Uh, I say they lose it instantly because you don't know what those picks are going to turn out to be. That's why just for the moment I would say they would lose just because they don't know what you don't know who they're drafting with those picks. I mean, and then you said they could go get another quarterback. I mean, there's not that many quarterbacks out there who's going to be worth 3 firsts, who's on the market
well, I'm
outside
not
of.
saying trade for a quarterback. I'm saying draft because
Yeah, but
whoever
again, they would have
it's
to hit
going
on
to
those
be
guys.
either the Jets, Dolphins, or Panthers that trade for Watson. So depending on who they trade with, at this point, I'm not sure if I'm not sure who he'll get traded to. But the point, let's just say he gets traded to the Jets. You've got your choice of Wilson or Fields, or if you like Trey Lance enough, which I mean I wouldn't take him number 2, especially over Fields, but I might take him over Zach Wilson. But the point is, you've got your pick at your franchise quarterback moving forward, aside from obviously Trevor Lawrence. If you make that trade, for example, for number 2, so you're in prime. If any other team had a star top 5 quarterback saying that they didn't want to play for them anymore and wanting to be traded out, they'd be in a bad situation as far as what assets can they get back to help rebuild the team, especially with the position the Texans are in. If any other team like this scenario doesn't happen. This
At
is
all. Yeah,
so
no.
rare.
Yeah,
This is
this
so
is
rare.
beyond rare, especially in football
Um,
for sure. The
and
rarest
then
in
you look at it,
football.
yeah, right. And then you look at it from the flip side of things of the team that wants Watson. What point does it become you're giving up too much? Because obviously you want Watson, but that's not the end all be all. You're going to have pieces around them. So, like, let's take Carolina for example. Let's say Carolina in a deal trades this year's first, next year's first, and the year after that. They trade this year's second and next year's second. They trade McCaffrey. Obviously, I don't care about trading Teddy Bridgewater, but the point is, you're trading your best offensive weapon. You're trading a ton of early round picks that you need to help build the offensive line around Watson, and you still have, places on defense you need help at. The safe, like I said, the safety position, corner, linebacker is a huge need for Carolina. The front four is pretty set for Carolina, I would say. Like defensive tackle opposite of Derek Brown is kind of a question mark right now, but they've got a couple young guys there that kind of rotate in and out of that spot. So not really worried about defensive tackle. So the front four on defense is set. But the point is, Carolina has a lot of needs, and getting a top 5 quarterback makes you a competitor, but not a contender. It puts you in possible playoff contention, but definitely not Super Bowl, not yet. So when does a trade become too much for a team?
Too much? Well, in this aspect, I don't think there is too much necessarily. I mean, unless they're offering like 5 plus first. The next, I don't even know if that's possible in the NFL.
You can only trade.
I think two picks after.
Now there is a scenario where
first after
a team could trade 4 first-round picks.
Yeah.
For 4 years. If they trade him when the draft begins, a team could trade that first-round pick, and then
because beforehand you only have the next.
that.
You only have 2 years after before the draft.
Right.
Yeah, because the following seasons won't start till after the draft starts. Correct. Yeah. I don't know that.
So you don't think there's a scenario where you're giving up a little bit too much as far as how are you going to build your team up afterwards?
For a Watson, I mean, yeah, there's always that aspect because you're gonna step if he's going to the Jets, obviously, how do they build a team around him when they already have nobody already around him in general? Like he gets there, then what? They gave him all these picks, and then what? So yeah, if he goes there, for sure, I can see that. But if he goes to a team like a Miami, or Carolina, whatnot, where they have weapons, they have a few playmakers. They gave up 3 first, obviously, whatnot, and they probably I don't see why they would have to throw in McCaffrey. I think they would still try to keep McCaffrey, maybe throw in an offensive lineman or a defensive lineman or whatnot instead of a McCaffrey, because I would like to see that pairing of Watson and McCaffrey in general. I mean, who wouldn't, obviously? Maybe you throw in an extra second or whatnot, instead of having to give it McCaffrey, or just throw an extra pick or 2, and then just draft the rest of your team around defense. But it depends. It's a team-by-team basis, I would say, because obviously the Jets and 2 of the 3 teams have weapons. The Jets have literally nothing. So if they give up 3 first and seconds and whatnot, who's he handing the ball off to? I don't know. Who's he throwing the ball to? I honestly have no clue. I can't name the Jets starting receivers today, March 14th.
You got Rashad Perryman and
Jesus, yikes! I don't know why he wants to go to the Jets. I guess because it's New York City. I guess it's New York City. We build a brand there, sure, but good luck winning anything. You're gonna be in the same situation. You'll just be north, and the winters in New York are way more miserable than the winters in Texas. I'm just telling you that. Yeah.
Before we sign off for episode 3, I do want to mention something that I just came across on Twitter. We just talked about the whole Taysom Hill thing earlier. Before that, we were saying how Jameis Winston's likely the quarterback for next year for the Saints. And that does seem to be the case. Ian Rappaport tweeted less than an hour ago that they had already been working on a new deal for Jameis Winston, who was going to be the likely starter for 2021.
Oh, I can see that. Where it could look, his contract could look like Winston's that he got from the
right.
Patriots.
So yeah, the deal could look like Cam Newton's. So,
which makes sense. Yeah,
I agree. So we had it right the first time, and I had it wrong the second time. I guess Taysom Hill remains there as kind of their backup quarterback / gadget player / water boy /
salary cap.
Salary cap sacrifice.
Yeah. Maneuver. So
that is about it for episode 3. Unless JR, you've got something else you want to add out of nowhere. I mean, we had twice in this episode now where we stopped and changed direction on a topic because of things we saw on Twitter. So,
I mean, hey, nothing like breaking news on your 3rd ever episode of it.
Right, exactly. So, that is it for episode 3, guys. Thank you so much for listening to us once again. We appreciate the support. Please like this video. We're going to post on YouTube. Leave a comment if you will. Tell us some topics you want us to talk about, and we'll talk about it. And subscribe to our channel. We try to get at least 1 episode up a week. And we're going to try to see about getting this podcast on Apple and Spotify. We got to look into it, see what we can do. But we're going to try to grow this podcast a lot for you guys, and we have a lot of fun doing it.
For sure.
So this is Grandmama Lynn Lewis and Not the Real JR Swish. You should change your Twitter handle to @NotTheRealJRSwish instead of having it be JR717 the kid. I know you named it after what's his name, the former Steelers wide receiver.
Oh, Mike Wallace, yeah.
Mike Wallace, yeah. So, all right, thank you guys so much for watching. We are signing off.
Yes,
JR, roll the outro.
It'll roll shortly after.
Roll it. Do it.
Weezy out of here.